You and I, my friend, operate on the premise that you need to be the message that you are providing to other people. And that starts with respect, authenticity, and genuine care for other people's life circumstance beyond your judgments or your particular lifestyle.
And, I can, people have said this before, that I could sell ice to an Eskimo, if you will, but it's not about that. It's about being authentic and being open to vulnerability. And you have to be present with a human being to do that. You have to see them. You have to look at them in the eyes and engage them and make them feel like they're the only person on earth in front of you at that moment, and really listen. Good morning, Al. It's great to see you again. How are you?
Well, I'm great, and I'm really grateful that we get to do these once a week, Stace, because I get to see your smiling face, and we get to have a chance to share a sort of a metaphoric cup of coffee with each other and our listeners to see what we can do with this moment to sort of help other people find their way forward out of a place of passion and inspiration and faith and trust of life.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I was thinking this morning about, I'm really the lucky one each week when we do this, because while our listeners get to hear from both of us and so forth, and I'm excited for our topic today and what we're going to share, I really get to learn every week. And I know our collaboration, you feel the same. We are excited to add value. And I think that just kind of kicks us off today, that we think about, why are we doing these podcasts, and why do people do podcasts and post things on social media? And we wanted to just share kind of our observations of that and what we think might be a little bit of a different perspective about how it could be used more effectively, how it could have an impact on people that may be more lasting than, a 15-second like or comment on the post that day and scrolling down to the next thing. But and that's our goal, always, to add value that can help people perhaps challenge their way of thinking and their mindset for the betterment of their life. So, Al, let's jump in. And I know that you've got some thoughts on that you'd like to share.
Well, I'd like to start by commenting on your opening there, Stacey. I think it's very insightful. It's a funny thing, as technology's developed, and you and I are old enough guys that we remember a time before there was even fax machines, which most generations today don't know what it is because we've so superseded that. There certainly was no internet. There wasn't really computers when you and I were coming up. We were probably around 20 to 25 to 30 before the first, at least I was. And so this has evolved so quickly and dramatically. If you think about, I like to think about things over time frames. And if you think about the evolution of, just a quick aside about technology generally before we jump into social media, if you look back 1,000 years, or 10,000 for that matter, but if you, in the last 10,000 years, if you saw how the consciousness of humanity in terms of its connection with one another evolved, you would see a very gradual rise over 10,000 years. And then when we got to the classical period with Greek and Rome and early China and whatnot, probably around 2,500 years ago to 2,000 years ago, we started having an uprise here in various spiritual leaders that came along: Buddha, Christ, Lao Tzu, Confucius, lots of Plato, Socrates, lots of people that had profound impact on humanity going forward. Then we move past the Roman and Greek phase, and we go through the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, and then we get to the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment was a major uptick of the rate of acceleration because we had the rise of natural science, and with it, the realization by people that the universe didn't circle around the Earth. The Earth, in fact, circles around the sun. That got a few, Galileo hung or whatever. They got a few people in trouble because you can't break these paradigms. And then we get into essentially this acceleration of information and technology and connectivity that really started accelerating in the 20th century. And by the time we got to the latter 20, 30 years, it's on a line like this. And now with this line going on, we have this hyperconnectivity of the entire world. For the first time in the history of humanity, any human being on earth can issue forth an opinion, or for that matter, share, information off the dark web of how to create a nuclear bomb, good or bad information, with everybody else in the world, theoretically. You can be in the jungles of the Amazon and still know what's going on over in Belgium. And so that to me represents a new challenge for humanity, because I think the biggest risk we all face is technology, and AI, artificial intelligence, is a big example of this. Intelligence runs the risk of outpacing human consciousness to be able to handle the power that technology represents. And so what the heck does that do with have to do with our topic today? I think it has a lot to do with it, because I see the way most people interface with social media as sort of the first stage of getting used to this ubiquitous communication available to all of us. And so it's being utilized and practiced in a very, in my opinion, superficial, indirect, shallow, and largely ineffective way, where if you and I are going to go start an ice cream store together as a business, we need to get it on all the sites, and we need to just saturate people with, and they can't be sound bites longer than 30 seconds or they won't pay attention. They go on and all of that. I don't agree. I think what matters to you and I and everybody listening to this podcast is they live an internal life that's rich and deep with all sorts of nuance and meaning. And what we really want is connection with life and with other people in a meaningful, qualitative way. So you and I are doing podcasts that probably break the mold of how most people do podcasts. We don't have a lot of other guests on. We're willing to. Anybody that wants to come on, you can contact us and you'll be invited. But I think at least I believe our approach, Stacey, is we're going to be iconoclasts, and we're going to break the rules of what is told in all the marketing schools you have to do. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in offering a conversation with my brother, Stacey Harding, a man I've come to know and love and respect as a deep man of wisdom, to explore various topics of consideration in the human condition that I've run across in all my years of coaching people and life and all that, and you have. And not because you and I have the answers, but because we want to issue an invitation to other people to go to the next level of interface between technology and human consciousness, to invite it to serve humanity in deepening relationships rather than creating a more shallow, increased tendency to treat one another in an objectified way as merely potential customers for whatever the hell we're trying to sell. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And as I was contemplating our conversation today, I was really thinking about the connection with people. And, that's where the richness of life is when we have deep, meaningful relationships that are, deeper than a dime deep. And it's not superficial, but it's truly engaging our souls and our hearts and our minds, not just having an intellectual conversation or a social engagement. And I think so much of what we've seen happen over the last couple of decades is that while we have instant information and tools available through all of this technology and social media, and information is unlimited. I mean, if you want to learn anything about history, just Google it and you'll get enough data to spend hours researching and reading it. But it feels to me that what we've done is we've diminished the depth of relationships. And I have just come across so many people that feel unseen in life. I mean, not only not valued, but they just don't even feel like people see them. And I'm not talking about just people who are introverts and standing on the sidelines. Successful people, wealthy people, they don't feel seen and heard. And oftentimes, and I think this could be true in relationships and marriages, that the longer that relationship is, the more likely it is that someone is going to feel understood for sure, maybe unseen. And so I think there's ways for us in kind of communication and just in the way we post things personally on Facebook or social media channels elsewhere, that we continue to deal with this idea of we want to project an image. And partly for our own, I guess, worth, our own enjoyment, our own pleasure to have people like our posts or comment on them. And I think it's dangerous because it causes us to not have a solid foundation of what true relationships are about and meaningful relationships. And so I think there's ways we can talk about that. And it was occurring to me earlier today also that I've watched a bunch of podcasts where people are talking about you must be authentic if you want to build your business and you've got to do these things. And they're the most pretentious presentations I've seen. Like, do they think that people don't see through that? And unfortunately, I think it does sell somewhat because people are not immune to manipulation and
Right.
even from media. And certainly we've seen that on the larger national and world platforms. But I would love for us in our podcast to cut through all the BS, if you will, and really talk about what's real in this world and what's real or not real on social media.
I think that's right on target because I think one of the risks, I think the way the trajectory of societal and human evolution can be measured in the secular sense is in what's occurring with our children, with younger generations. And if you see the impact of social media, I saw a video this morning from on Bill Maher, who is a guy who 4 years ago I would have said was a raging progressive liberal, whatever you want to call it. These days, not so much. He's sort of slightly right of center, which I find interesting. He says he hasn't changed, just that's how far the society's come.
Yeah.
Well, he brought up a topic that I thought was very interesting. I'd never seen this before. He showed a chart of statistics measured from some Harvard or someplace that did a study. And in baby boomers, you and I, and this, by the way, let me just say this because today, unfortunately, you have to say this to make sure nobody gets mad at you or thinks you're saying something you don't mean to say. This isn't a statement of judgment about lifestyles. This is an observation about statistics. So he was saying in the baby boomers, I think it was 0.5% of baby boomers identified as LGBTQ, whatever. Well, back when you and I were kids, there was basically just there weren't all those acronyms. There was two categories, right? But now there's more. So 0.5% baby boomers goes to the next generation, goes to 3%, goes to the next generation. Today, it's 20% of Gen Z identify as LGBTQ. Now, all right, that's data. If that's true, let's assume it's true. What does that mean? Well, to me, what it asks the question of is how much of this is created as a meme in society using social media and programming from various news sources that is creating the premise of the enviability or the advantage or the positive benefit of being in that particular lifestyle. Again, no judgment about the lifestyle. I think it becomes an issue of identity. It could be whether you identify as whatever, name it. The point being is that social media is a major tool of influencing us in our personal lives and our personal identities and our trajectories. And that can break people apart or it can bring people together. I have no issue with whatever people want to do as far as a lifestyle. My concern is how much of it is being programmed from social media and what is the motivation behind the programmers? What are they trying to get us to do? A major area that I see is the relationship that commerce has with social media, where everybody is selling all the time. And I personally find it annoying. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is take the 20 or 30 junk emails of people that are going to fix me. And I haven't asked to be fixed, but they're going to fix me because I've just got to get those hair plugs or I've got to have Viagra or I've got to have whatever. And they've got the answer for me. And it's this aggressive kind of quantitative approach to really trying to give to the world my solution you need to buy for me, Stacey, as opposed to having enough respect for people to say, well, let me stop and find out who is Stacey and what does Stacey need and how can I help him get it, even if it doesn't come through me? This more qualitative, caring, respectful relationship between consumer and providers. That's where I see a lot of social media, which is really around the manipulation of buy from me, buy from me, buy from me, with a disregard and a pretense that I know, Stacey, here's what you need. Well,
Right.
you don't know that I need it. You're just targeting me. That concerns me because I think it undermines trust in relationships because we all start to get leery of what's Stacey's gig and why he's talking on these podcasts. What's he trying to sell? Look, you and I aren't trying to sell anything to anybody with these podcasts. You have Hourglass Consulting. I have Integrative Mastery Programs. We both do very unique, high quality, effective work with people. Our goal is to attract people to the futures they're capable of. And if they want to have a conversation to see if we're part of that, and maybe not even we are, but maybe we know somebody that is that can help them, we're down for that. And we don't resent the fact they're not buying our products. You and I, my friend, operate on the premise that you need to be the message that you are providing to other people. And that starts with respect, authenticity, and genuine care for other
Yes.
people's life circumstance beyond your judgments or your particular lifestyle. I don't happen to be in the community, for example, of LGBTQ. Got several clients that are, and we're all just people, and we're all just souls walking our way home. So I don't tend to get too caught up in the labels and the acronyms that sadly is, I think, breaking society apart in the name of labels. And are you a label that's with me or against me? What do you think, Stacey?
Yeah, 100%. And what I've grown concerned about just as I've watched people in their lives, and again, the message that I think we're given growing up in the media about take care of number one, get all you can get, engineer your own life. And while personal responsibility is important, right? And having committed behaviors is important, and it is in any society and for the the value of a human being. What I'm really committed to, and I know you are as well, Al, is cutting through all of that. Because I think when people don't learn to connect authentically with others, they're not doing justice to that relationship and the person on the receiving end, but they're actually harming themselves. And I know it from personal experience. I'm not saying I've just watched this. I mean, I've done it. And, I can, people have said this before that I could sell ice to an Eskimo, if you will, but it's not about that. It's about being authentic and being open to vulnerability. And you have to be present with a human being to do that. You have to see them. You have to look at them in the eyes and engage them and make them feel like they're the only person on earth in front of you at that moment and really listen. Most of us all the time in conversations when somebody's speaking, we're thinking about what do we need to say next? And I'm trying very hard, so I'm not always prepared when you say, what do you think? I'm like, well, I wasn't thinking about what I'm thinking about. I'm trying to listen to you. But it is important for us to slow down, I think, and be present with people and do that on social media, if we will. It's all fun to post pictures. I do it occasionally and have the joy of sharing some, temporary happiness that maybe we've had at an event or a gathering of that type. But what would happen? I mean, is it possible for us to, in this generation of instant gratification and all that's available to us, is it possible for us to stop and say, I'm going to work on the quality of my relationships, not the volume of them. And I'm not going to seek likes. I'm going to seek relationships. And I hope that we can do that. And there's some strategies around how to build your social skills, if you will. And there's soft skills. I mean, we understand that through our educational process, we teach technical skills. We don't do much to teach soft skills in this world. And that's actually what's most important in building meaningful relationships that last and endure a lifetime.
Yeah, and I think there tends to be, in an overly quantitative, economically oriented, power oriented society, there tends to be an emphasis on hard skills. And because they create immediate measurability as to validation and whether they're part of the solution or part of the problem, we tend to devalue, particularly in the West, particularly in America, highly materialistic culture. We tend to devalue qualitative and soft skills because they are contextual. The intangible, this is one of the challenges you have when you're a person of spirit, as you are, as I am, as frankly everybody is, whether they know it or not, in my mind. And so, what's the value of soft skills? What's the value of the intangible? What's the value of breaking rank with this programming we're getting to be just about driving to the hoop, make money, get success, buy the big car, buy the second car, buy the third house? What's the alternative to that? Because that stuff obviously it doesn't going to make us happy, yet everybody pursues it. I think it's what you said, Stacey. It's vulnerability, and I think these conversations we're having, this podcast, are level 4 conversations. I think it's an opportunity for us to briefly discuss the dark side of a quantitative, saturated social media trying to sell you their whatever they're trying to sell, at the expense of true connection in this way. When you have a more shallow, superficial interface with each other through technology, it creates the invitation for labeling. And once we begin to label each other, oh wait, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, you're out of my tribe, I want nothing to do with you, you're a bad person. Oh, you're a Nazi conservative that believes that. We have these trigger words and categories that put people into groups too quickly. And as a result, we're creating a divided humanity into camps, armed camps, warring camps. It's increasing the conflict in the world. That's a level 3 pathology. It's egos labeling other people out of a sense of you're either part of me or you're the other. And I hate the other. The other is evil. I'm in a battle here, right? That's level 3. Level 4, in my opinion and in my experience, is I may meet somebody that votes differently than I do, that looks different than I do, that has a different sexual orientation than I do, that has a different lifestyle than I do, that live in a different country, a different culture. They can have all the differences in the world that have me nothing immediately in common with them. But what my level 4 says I can do is I can look at that person and say, Stacey, I don't know everything about your life. I don't need to know everything about your life because you are someone who I can look at through the lens of what values you present in the way you relate to the world, because that to me is the portal to understanding what is in you that's lovable, which is your soul. And I share that place with you, with my soul, beyond the surface delimiters of what camp and what label you are. That's the reason for these podcasts. It's the reason we do them in the way we do them, is we want to invite people back into a larger sense of connectivity with all human beings being love-worthy, because they all have this thing we call soul, and maybe we'll do a podcast on what the heck is soul. But we all have this place of intangibility that is the root, the source of where this physical thing comes from, that's going to come and go with time. And so from that place, I can love you. I can love anybody listening to this. I can love people I've never met that vote differently, look differently, because in the end, those are all surface functions of personalities and egos in the world. And what social media could be is a chance to bring people into a higher order of connection, into a state of oneness, regardless of the invitations for differentiation and alienation. What do you think?
Well, you said some things there about soul that just made me think so richly about some information I've been reading in a book recently, and it talks about this idea that we all have some differences. We have different physical abilities, we have different economic status in the world, and all those things. But in the end, we all are equal at the soul level.
Right.
And so when we go through life and we work to have these rich relationships, if we can see people, whether they're agreeing with us or not, as this is my soul partner in this journey in life, because we all are, we're all connected. And I know sometimes we think that's just kind of, out there things that you think about, but the reality is when it's all stripped away and we're at the end of this physical journey, we are all destined to the exact same outcome. And I think we can value one another more if we think about, well, this is my soul brother, this is my soul sister. I don't agree with them on hardly any of the intellectual things they're talking about, but I can love them anyway. And in some respects, that's the way we love ourselves, is it not?
I think frankly, our relationship, you and I, is a good example of this because honestly, people listening to this podcast may not know it, but you and I have probably not spent a total of 10 minutes in conversation for the last 30 years until we started having conversations 3 months ago in great depth. And it so quickly became a recognition that there's somebody here who I have a deep level of resonance with, synchronicity with, connection with. And here's this thing I've been doing for a long time, Stacey. What do you think? And you're like, yeah, that's what I need to be doing. And so you start Hourglass, and now we're going to go serve the world with that.
Mhm.
I think it begs the question, Stacey. Let me ask you this because I've thought a lot about this. I have this thing on the Eight Noble Virtues. But if I just take the very first one of love, how would you define the difference between level 3 love, ego based love, and level 4 love, soul based love?
Well, thanks for asking that, Al. It's conditional versus unconditional, right? So level 3 is I'm going to experience love with you if I'm being fulfilled with my expectations in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they're very self-centered, perhaps even narcissistic, and they're not um, they're not conscious in the sense of understanding the perception of the reality of the other person's viewpoints of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've experienced those relationships, and I'm sure I fall back into it from time to time. But level 3 for me would be I love you because you fulfill needs that I have in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Unconditional is I love you because you are a gift in this world to the world and to me. And you don't have to do anything in order to earn my love.
Mm-hmm.
It's all, I can't hold it back from you because it's so unconditional. And I think human relationships, it's hard to do that if both partners aren't operating in their soul at a level 4 consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk a lot more about level 3 and level 4. But I'm telling you, I can't find significance in my life if I don't find a way to unconditionally love people and have positive regard for them, regardless of how they're behaving.
See, this is why I'm grateful you're from a small town in Kansas because you have a really wonderfully pragmatic and clear, succinct way of capturing great wisdom. Whereas, unfortunately, I fail at that. I tend to seem to want to. I tend to want to. I'm Irish. I tend to need to paint the picture more fluidly, and so I love your definitions actually because they're so much simpler than mine, and yet they arrive at the same place. My definition of level 3 love is a conditional emotional transaction. I will love you if you meet these conditions. I feel it. It's an emotion. I'm in love, and it's a transaction. I'll give if I get, and it's transactional, basically. Level 4 love, I don't believe is conditional, is transactional, or an emotion. I think level 4 love is a spiritual recognition.
Yes.
I think if I can be in the mall and see somebody that looks differently than me, they have purple hair, half their hair is cut off, and they've got all kinds of things going on that I've never done. And I can look at it, and my level 3 immediately wants to judge them for looking the way they are or acting the way they are. I'm not going to even be considering whether I'm willing to have a sense of love with them. But if I can remember that there's a soul in that person, whether they're in touch with that soul or not, that was here before their body and will be here when their body's gone and is a part of divinity, God, source, universe, whatever we call that thing. And since I'm also a part of that, there's a part of me that is at one with this person beyond their presentation as in physical form. And that's what's love worthy. I would offer that level 4 is a spiritual state of divine, of recognition of the divine in others that awakens a remembrance of the divine in yourself that has you yearn for oneness. Really, we use in sexual terms, you hear the term making love. Well, that's
Mhm.
sort of an activity. I think what you're really doing is you're communing connection And the desire for physical intimacy in that way is, to me, a physical manifestation of the desire of union. Because when you feel level 4 love, you have an innate, strong desire deeper than your personality for union, oneness, not only with other people, with animals, with sunsets, with the Grand Canyon, with places. That's what starts to open up a new relationship with life as a whole, because I believe love is the experience of God, divinity, when we're in physical form. It's in that level 4 love state. When I'm feeling that, doesn't matter how long I live, doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank. All that matters is I'm home. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that describes the path to peace and happiness and freedom, quite frankly. And so I love our conversation. Now, we probably are at the point where we'll wrap up for today, but we always want to remind people that we'll talk about any subject that you might have interest in.
Right.
And we continue to communicate that we're just doing this because we want to help. And it fulfills a great need in our own lives to be of value to others. So we're enjoying doing this. But if we can be helpful in any way, and Al, thanks so much for spending time with me doing this. I appreciate it greatly.
Well, I look forward to these, Stacey, and yeah, I would echo your message. Anybody has a topic, shoot us a message, and we'll consider that topic. Anybody who wants to come onto the podcast, let us know. We'd be happy to interview them, because in the end, Stace, you and I are like Belushi and Aykroyd and the Blues Brothers. We're on a mission from God. I think everybody is. They may just not know it. So
I'm not sure whether I'm Belushi or you're Belushi, but it's a fun journey.
thank you all for being with us today. And if you have suggestions, not just what to talk about, but how to make these podcasts more meaningful and rich and penetrative for you, let us know. We're open to it, because this to me is just you and I essentially being the voice piece of a lot of people that feel the way we feel and want to have a world that connects more rather than dissolves and fights and conflicts more. Right. Love you, brother. Thank you for being here and setting this up.
Thank you all for watching, and above all else, be good to yourself today. Have a great day.
Yeah. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Blessings.